Hey, the learner. Welcome back to another deep dive. You know, we always tailor these deep dives just for you. And today we're really excited about this one.
Yeah, this is a good one.
It's all about boosting efficiency.
And predictability.
Yeah.
Huge.
And that's through the power of a consistent operational rhythm.
It's so important.
It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, no matter what you're working on,
Right.
no matter your field,
Doesn't matter.
this is going to help.
Exactly.
This is Season 1, Episode 3 of the Deep Dive, a Karas Innovations Group production. And thank you, as always, to our executive producer and founder, Lanier Johnson.
So you know, we've been looking at all the stuff you've been sending us.
Yes.
And you've shared some really cool sources.
I think they're really cool.
that explore this idea of a management operating system.
Or an MOS.
MOS.
Yeah.
And how that regular cadence,
Yeah, the key.
it's the engine that drives it.
That's the key.
Yeah.
That's the secret sauce.
Yeah.
That's what makes it work. Exactly. And so our goal today is to go beyond just defining what those things are,
Right.
MOS and cadence, but actually like why? Why establishing these predictable routines?
Right, is it?
Why is it so powerful for creating stability
Yes.
and maximizing output
Yeah.
and ultimately making you feel more proactive
Feeling better about it all.
and less reactive?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Less like you're
Putting out fires all the time.
Yeah, less like you're behind.
Yeah, constantly
Right.
catching up.
Exactly. And we've got some great stuff to go over.
Yeah, we do.
Articles and case studies.
I love the case studies.
The case studies really bring it to life.
They do. They really show you
Yeah.
what it looks like in the real world.
And it's not just theory.
No.
They highlight the tangible results
Yeah.
that companies have seen
Actual.
across all sorts of different industries.
Yeah, much.
By implementing this approach.
So we'll see how setting these consistent routines in motion
Yeah.
can really reduce
It's
those unexpected hiccups.
It's like insurance.
It is like insurance.
Yeah.
Right?
For your business.
Because you're taking those steps
you're being proactive.
ahead of time to prevent those things from
Basically,
happening.
like you're not waiting for the fire
To start, rather than just reacting all the time.
Before you call the fire department, you've got the sprinklers.
You got the sprinklers, you got the fire extinguishers,
Yeah.
and so it creates a much more stable
Yeah.
and frankly more enjoyable
Way more enjoyable
environment to operate in.
when you're not stressed.
Right.
When you know what's going on.
Yes, it's just calmer.
Way less stress.
Yeah.
And that's true whether you're managing a complex project or an entire team
Or both.
or both.
It works at all levels.
Yeah.
You know, from the individual
Yeah.
up to a huge corporation.
To the team, to the whole company.
Yeah. So, okay, let's dive into this idea of an operational cadence.
All right, let's do it.
So when we talk about a consistent MOS cycle
Yeah.
or operational cadence,
Right.
what exactly does that entail?
Well, at its core, it's about establishing a set of defined and repeatable routines at every level of an organization.
Okay.
So think of it as the underlying pulse of your operations.
I like that.
It's like a heartbeat.
The heartbeat of the business.
Yeah.
Okay.
Regular, predictable check-in points.
Okay, so give me an example.
Sure. So this might look like daily huddles
Okay.
for quick information sharing and problem identification
Okay.
or weekly planning sessions for a more strategic look ahead.
So huddles are tactical.
Yeah.
Weekly is more strategic.
Thinking more about the future.
Okay.
Yeah. Or monthly reviews
Okay.
to assess progress against goals and identify broader trends.
All right. So there's different levels of the
Different timescales. Yeah.
different timescales. Okay.
Different purposes.
Different purposes. So it's not just about having meetings.
It's not just
It's about having the right meetings.
right. Meet at
the right time.
The right time.
Consistently.
Yeah. Got to be consistent.
That seems to be the key word.
Consistency is key.
Okay. But why is that so valuable for someone like you, the learner, who really values efficiency and understanding how things work?
Well, the real power here is its ability to prevent surprises.
Okay.
So you're essentially creating a proactive system for identifying and addressing potential issues.
Before they become big problems.
Or they become fires.
Before they become fires.
Exactly.
Right.
When everyone knows when these touch points will occur and what the focus will be,
Right.
it just creates that sense of preparedness and allows for a much more proactive stance.
Right.
Rather than constantly
Putting out fires.
reacting to the latest emergency.
Right.
Which is exhausting.
Yes, it is. So you're getting ahead of it
way less stressful.
You're not always behind?
Yeah.
And so it's less stressful?
Much calm.
You're more prepared.
Yeah, you got it.
What's really interesting about this is this consistent engagement fosters a sense of psychological safety.
That's huge.
Because you know those issues will be regularly discussed.
It's not like
It reduces that fear of failure.
being swept under the rug.
Exactly.
Right.
And encourages proactive problem solving.
Because you know it's going to come up
Yeah, you're going to talk about it.
at the next meeting.
It's on the agenda.
It's on the agenda.
You can't avoid it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that builds trust
Right.
and accountability
Within the team.
because you're all in it together.
Everyone's working on it together.
You're all responsible.
Okay, so it's not just about the process.
It's not just
It's about that human element.
the people.
Yeah, how people feel.
How they feel.
when they're working.
Their attitudes.
Okay,
It affects everything.
let's look at a real-world example to bring this to life.
Okay. Love it.
We've got some information about Titan Components.
I've heard of them.
They're a manufacturer.
Okay.
What challenges were they
I'm
facing
not sure Titan
before they implemented a consistent cadence?
was dealing with a pretty common set of headaches. I mean, we see this all the time.
Yeah, manufacturing.
Manufacturing, yeah.
Okay.
Inconsistent production output,
Okay.
missed deadlines,
Mhm.
communication breakdowns.
Between departments.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Different department not talking to each other.
Not talking to each other.
Huge problem.
Okay.
And they had some elements of a management system in place.
Okay.
I mean, they were trying.
They were trying. They were having meetings.
They were having meetings, but
But they were kind of ad hoc. It wasn't very organized.
yeah, regular
And they varied a lot.
from department to department.
Yeah, from one department
So like one department
to the next, it was totally different.
might do something totally different.
Totally different.
Okay.
And no
There
consistent.
was no unified, predictable rhythm.
Yeah. So really, they didn't have an MOS. They didn't really have an MOS.
Not really.
They had pieces of it.
They had the ingredients,
They had the ingredients.
but they weren't using the recipe,
Okay.
if that makes sense.
That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And what were the real world consequences of this lack of a consistent operational beat
It was not good.
for Titan?
No, it created a lot of problems.
Okay.
The irregularity had kind of a cascading effect.
Okay, so one thing led to another.
Exactly. Yeah. One problem
Okay.
led to another.
Okay.
Issues weren't being identified early enough
Okay.
and addressed quickly.
Okay.
So the production teams were always scrambling.
To catch up.
Yeah, to react.
Okay.
To put out fires.
Which threw their schedules
Oh, yeah.
into disarray
Big time. Yeah.
and killed efficiency.
Field efficiency.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then also
On top of that.
the lack of standardized communication meant that different parts of the company
Different parts weren't talking.
weren't aligned.
Yeah.
Okay, so they had different priorities,
Different priorities.
different information.
Different everything.
The other one was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge problem.
And that led to delays in getting materials.
Exactly.
Miscommunication on specifications.
You got it.
And ultimately,
And then at the end of the day,
a struggle for leadership to get a clear picture
to figure out what was going on.
of what was actually happening.
Yeah, they were flying
On
blind.
the factory floor.
Yeah, it basically.
No visibility.
No visibility. So it made effective decision making
Impossible.
really difficult.
Yeah. Nearly impossible.
So a reactive and somewhat chaotic.
Very chaotic.
Environment.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so how did they turn things around?
Well,
What were the specific changes they made to establish this cadence that sticks?
okay, well, they implemented a really structured
Okay,
and crucially repeatable
okay,
set of routines
okay.
at all levels
Of the organization.
of the organization. So
Okay.
top to bottom.
So what did that look like?
All right. So for the frontline production teams, they introduced short
Okay.
daily shift huddles.
Okay, so every shift.
Every shift got together.
Okay.
And these were designed to be brief, focused meetings,
Okay.
just to quickly review the previous day's performance against their targets,
Uh,
talk about any immediate problems
uh,
or roadblocks,
okay.
and then set clear priorities for the current shift.
Okay.
So it was just like
A quick check-in.
a quick check-in
Okay.
to make sure everyone's on the same page.
Okay. And then for their supervisors,
So going up a level,
going up a level, they established weekly
weekly production planning,
production planning meetings.
meetings, yeah.
Okay, and these were
These were a little more in depth.
more in depth. Okay.
We were focused on looking ahead allocating resources
Yeah.
like people and materials,
Okay.
and proactively managing production capacity for the upcoming week.
So the weekly meeting is all about
Yeah, kind of getting ready
the week ahead.
for the next week.
Okay. And then for the senior management team,
The big bosses.
the big bosses,
Yeah.
they implemented monthly
Monthly performance reviews.
performance reviews.
Yeah.
Okay.
But with a twist.
What's the twist?
They had a standardized agenda.
A standardized agenda. So every monthly meeting
Every single one
was the same.
is the same
Topics.
Okay, why is that important?
So that's important because it ensures that everyone's talking about
The same thing.
the same things. You're covering all the bases. We're not missing anything.
So those standardized agendas seem like a key element here.
They're super important.
So what did those monthly reviews typically focus on at Titan?
So they always focus on tracking
Yeah.
key performance indicators, KPIs, yeah,
Sure.
to see how they were doing against their goals.
So how are we doing? Are we on track?
Are we on track? Are we
behind?
behind? Are we ahead?
Okay.
You know, where do we need to
Where do we need to improve?
make adjustments?
Okay. And then a big chunk of time was dedicated to problem solving.
Okay, so not just identifying the problems,
Now, actually figuring out
but actually how to solve them.
how to solve them.
Okay.
So they were identifying the root causes of any deviations from the targets
Okay.
and brainstorming potential solutions.
Okay.
And then, very importantly, every review included forward-looking actions.
So not just looking back,
Not just,
but looking ahead.
yeah, what are we going to do
What are we going to do?
about it?
Okay.
What specific steps need to be taken to address these issues
And keep getting better.
and keep improving?
Okay.
And they didn't just have these meetings and hope for the best.
Wow.
They actually invested in training their managers.
Okay, so the managers knew
Knew how to run the meetings,
how to run them effectively.
how to keep them focused and productive,
Okay.
make sure everyone was participating.
Everyone's participating.
Yeah.
And that action items were clearly documented
Written down.
and followed up on
Because what's the point of having a meeting
if nothing happens afterward.
if nothing happens afterwards, right? So they actually followed through
Uh-huh.
on those actions.
So they took it seriously.
They did.
Okay.
They invested in making it work.
And what kind of impact did all of this have on Titan's performance?
The results were really impressive.
I mean, we've got some information that suggests some pretty significant
Yeah.
improvements.
In a short amount of time.
Yeah, in a relatively short period.
Really quickly.
Okay, so what happened?
Well, within just 2 months.
2 months of implementing these routines.
Yeah.
Titan Components saw a 20% improvement
20%.
in their schedule adherence.
Which is amazing.
So meaning they were meeting
That means they were hitting their deadlines
their planned production deadlines
much more reliably.
much more reliably.
Yeah.
Okay.
Way less stress.
Way less stress. And they also experienced a 12% increase.
Yeah, that's huge.
In their OEE.
OEE.
Yeah.
Overall equipment effectiveness.
Which is a really important
That's
proof
gold standard in manufacturing.
in manufacturing. And that takes into account
A bunch of things.
a bunch of things.
Yeah, like how much
Like how often the equipment is
the equipment's actually running,
up and running, how quickly it runs,
how fast it's going,
when it's operating,
when it's actually working.
Yeah.
The percentage of good parts.
the quality of
Slow
the
down, right?
output.
Yes.
So if we just take a minute to think about what that actually means,
Yeah, break that down.
break that down. So OEE,
It's basically a combination of how available the equipment is
to run,
to actually do its job.
to actually do its job.
Yeah.
Okay.
So is it broken down?
Is it down for maintenance?
Is it being used?
Yeah.
Or is it just sitting there?
Okay.
So that's availability.
Okay.
And then how quickly it runs.
When it's actually operating.
When it's running, is it running
Is it running at full speed?
at full speed?
Is it running slow?
Or is it slow?
Okay.
So that's the speed
Okay,
and then the quality.
That's the percentage of good parts.
Yeah. So out of all the things,
All the parts that it makes,
it makes
how many are actually good?
how many are usable?
Usable.
Yeah.
So it's really a measure of
Overall, how productive
is the equipment running?
equipment? Yeah. So 12% jump in that metric
Yeah.
signifies
That's a big deal.
a significant boost in productivity.
Yeah, a huge improvement.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 20% improvement in hitting deadlines, 12% jump in overall productivity in just 2 months.
And this is just the beginning.
That's amazing.
This is just the start.
It gets better.
Okay, so let's dig a little deeper.
Okay.
How did those daily shift huddles
Yeah.
specifically contribute to these gains?
So the daily huddles were really good For early issue detection.
Okay, because the frontline teams were meeting every day.
They were talking every day.
They were talking every day.
Yeah. Any problems could be quickly discussed and addressed.
Before...
Or at least flagged.
Flagged, like, hey, this is something.
This is something we need to look into.
We need to be aware of.
Okay.
Before it becomes a bigger issue.
Before they had a chance to disrupt...
Blow up
the whole production...
The whole thing.
Schedule. Yeah. And it also improved communication flow.
Big time.
Within and between the different shifts.
Yeah, because everyone knew what was going on.
Everyone knew what was happening.
Everyone was in the loop.
Okay.
So that was huge.
So everyone was aware of any immediate challenges or changes in priorities.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they were all on the same page.
Okay. And the weekly planning meetings?
So the weekly planning...
What role did they play?
They were all...
In the overall improvement.
Being proactive.
Okay.
So they allowed for a much more proactive approach.
Right.
To managing resources and capacity.
So instead of waiting till something happened.
They were thinking ahead. They were thinking ahead.
Like, what could go wrong?
Okay.
What might happen?
What are some potential problems?
What are some potential problems?
Okay.
And how can we get ready for them?
Okay.
So they were looking ahead at the production targets for the next week.
For the coming week. Anticipating potential bottlenecks.
Bottlenecks, yeah. Those things that slow you down.
That slow you down are challenges.
Challenges, yeah.
So maybe key piece of equipment.
Big key piece of equipment, yeah.
Needed maintenance.
That's always a problem.
Or
maybe we don't have enough.
A shortage of material.
There's some crucial material.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so by thinking about those things ahead of time, supervisors could make better decisions.
Much better, yeah.
About staffing levels.
Do we need more people?
Material allocation.
Do we have enough stuff?
And equipment scheduling.
Is the equipment?
Is the right equipment?
Would be available.
Going to be ready to go when we need it.
Exactly.
Okay.
So they were thinking through all of that.
So they were being more strategic.
Yeah, much more strategic.
And forward-looking at the weekly level.
That's the key.
And that helped them avoid those last-minute...
The fire drills.
Scrambles.
Okay.
And smoothed out that production flow.
They were like a well-oiled machine.
They were like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
Okay. And what about those monthly... Performance reviews with senior management?
Those were really important.
How did they contribute?
So they were really good at identifying recurring patterns and like systemic issues.
Those bigger picture problems.
The bigger issues that you might not see day to day or even week to week.
So maybe there's like a trend.
Yeah, trend.
Over time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So by looking at the data, over a longer period, senior leaders could identify trends, understand the root causes of those persistent problems.
Okay, like maybe a particular process.
Yeah, maybe a process.
Was causing defects.
It was messed up.
Or a piece of equipment.
Breaking down all the time.
That was breaking down.
Yeah.
Okay.
So then they could figure out, okay, how do we fix the process?
Fix the process.
How do we invest in better equipment?
Okay, invest in better equipment.
Yeah.
And these were like organization-wide.
Across the whole organization.
Improvements.
Yeah, they weren't just like...
Not just in one department.
One department, yeah.
Okay.
So it was really about improving the whole system.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it sounds like each level of this cadence, daily, weekly, monthly, is designed to catch
different levels
of problems at different time horizons.
Time horizons, exactly.
Creating this...
Like a safety net.
Safety net, yeah.
For the whole business.
Okay.
To catch all the problems.
Catch everything before they get too big.
Okay. So now beyond just the impressive numbers, we have some information about a positive cultural transformation at Titan.
This is where it gets really interesting.
Okay. What did that look like?
So the consistent cadence really helped to create
a much stronger sense of shared purpose and accountability.
Everyone was working together.
Everyone was on the same team because they had those regular opportunities.
Right.
Understand the company's goals, see the progress.
They could see how they were doing.
Yeah, they weren't just working in a vacuum.
Right. They weren't just doing their little piece.
They could see how their piece fit into the bigger picture.
Okay.
And they could contribute to identifying solutions.
So they felt more ownership.
They felt more ownership. Yeah. Like they were part of the solution.
They were part of the solution.
Not
just the problem.
The problem.
Right. And that led to employees feeling more connected to the overall mission.
And they felt more empowered.
More empowered to manage their daily challenges.
Because they knew they had support.
They had support.
Yeah.
And a way to
talk about it.
Communicate those challenges.
And to get help.
And get help and problem solve.
Yeah, they weren't alone.
So they weren't just stuck with a problem that they didn't know how to solve.
Exactly.
And that led to
Yeah.
a more stable.
A more engaged.
More engaged.
And as the numbers showed,
A more productive
work
environment.
So it was a win-win.
A win-win for everybody.
For everybody, yeah.
That's a powerful insight. It's not just about efficiency.
It's about the people.
It's about building
Yes.
a more resilient,
Yeah.
a place
Where
where people
people
want to
can-
work from the inside out.
Exactly.
So it seems this isn't
This is
just a manufacturing-specific phenomenon.
not at all.
Our sources indicate that the importance of this operational cadence is being recognized.